Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this Monday's Wealth Creation Show. And today we are talking about creating wealth in a challenging economy. A very talked about topic at the moment, I think, obviously, because of the economy now, Jim, and obviously the talks of recession and how things are in general in the economy. People will be concerned about their investments and how they're going to continue creating wealth through this time. So we've put this together today, and I think it's going to be quite a good topic quite a lot of topics within this conversation today that will resonate with everybody that is investing at the moment or in that process of trying to create their own wealth. Do you agree?
Absolutely. At the end of the day, this is what we all want, really, is to create wealth. But especially at this time where we're getting told time and time again, we're going to have to tighten our belts, we're going to have to make a difference, we're going to have to change things, we're going to have to change our lifestyles, we're all going to have to cut back. And it's like, bullshit. That's utter rubbish. You don't need to cut back just because somebody else says you've got to cut back. What the key is here is to generate the income that comes in even more. And in that way, you don't need to cut back. You can still maintain the current lifestyle you've got, exactly when we're talking about these top tips just now.
Yeah. I think that there is a lot of the ups and downs. Well, there can be a lot of the ups and downs in an economy which can have an effect on people's earnings, their investment levels, across whole nations and obviously countries and things that will have effect on everybody individually. And I think it's important to look at obviously your earnings and what your initial income source is, and also have in the back of your mind for situations like this to have like an emergency fund and things as well.
Emergency fund. It's to me, it's like Monte Carlo or bust.
Yeah, well, not everybody's.
It's all or nothing.
Yeah.
And that's what I say. That's what I say outside of here. But when you look at the numbers and you look at how I plan things, it's like this is guaranteed success.
Yeah.
I've literally got this down to a fine art, a fine science in terms of how I do this. And every single time, I mean, I'll never jinx it by saying it's like when you get the Midas touch, you've got the Midas touch. You know what you're doing in this area of field.
Yeah.
Not in everything you do, because I've tried that. Oh, I've got the Midas touch, and I went and did something else, and it didn't work.
Yeah. And just to clarify, you're referring to property investment.
Yeah, property investment is definitely the thing. Wealth creation is definitely as well. You can't create wealth in any single field that you've got. The key here is out of this is to understand what you love to do best and learn how to monetize it. Every single time you'll be told this. You'll see this in every single successful podcast. Every single successful person has done something in any particular field, whether it's been charities, whether it's been, creating a huge manufacturing empire, creating a huge worldwide global dominating, conglomerate. They've all put it down to the fact that the principles are exactly the same in any single field that you do. It's what we discuss right here, but on a smaller scale, just for you and I, and just for anybody else tuning out there, it's kind of just it's kind of you have to start. You have to walk before you can run.
Yeah.
And I talk about that quite a lot, and I've talked about that to you in the past quite a lot. It's like, whoa, wait a minute, you've got to walk before you can run, Richard. For goodness sake, it's like you can't expect. I mean, anybody who's got young kids will understand this straight away. When your children were first born and you were cuddling them about and, holding them in your arms and all the rest of it, they couldn't walk. And then at some point in time, they started to pull themselves. And you're going, oh, your beauty. He or she's pulling themselves up onto the couch. And it's like, they're learning to walk along. And it's like, any point in time, did you just say to your child when they fell down on the ground and says, oh, forget it, just sit down. You'll not be good at this walking anymore. No, you never.
No.
And this is the same mentality, but that is the mentality that most people use nowadays when they're adults, because they forget that encouragement they need to give themselves in order to move forward, in order to build something from themselves, in order to be successful at what they do. They have that mentality of, sit down, you'll never walk, forget it. Whereas in actual fact, they go, no, I'm going to pull myself up and I'm going to try again. So this is all about learning to walk first before you can run. So many people are in this bubble, which is Instagram, which is TikTok, and they expect results overnight. Newsflash, it's never going to work for you like that unless by luck, and sheer luck, it happens. The moon and the stars are all aligned at the same time. But the majority of people actually have to work very, very hard for what they've got. And they put the time and effort and the hours and the consistency and the discipline and everything else that works in the background. You know, the proverbial iceberg, where you just see the tip of the iceberg and people say, like, wow, you've been so successful. You've been an overnight, a 30 years overnight success.
Yeah.
It's like, because underneath that iceberg, underneath the water, that no one sees, is all the hard work and determination that went before that. It got to this point. It reached that point. You know, there's no doubt about it. When I started, homeless and unemployed with no formal education.
Yeah.
And then someone's on the other day saying to a politician, when they tried to criticize me, they said, do you realize this guy is an expert in this field? He knows exactly what he's talking about. And you're saying nonsense to him about what he's saying about homelessness and how this is going to affect things, and the fact that there's a huge sell-off in the landlord market as well. That is a fundamental mind shift difference in other people's minds to create that brand, which is you. And that's anybody out there listening in, tuning in. Listen, we will take questions at the
I was just
end.
going to say
More
that,
than happy to do that. So if you've got any questions, you've got any comments, we will go over all this at the end of this. This show generally runs for about an hour. It can overrun a bit because there's a lot of people that actually interact here, and we'll answer a lot of questions as well at the end as well, because people want to know. So it is key. It is you out there. It makes the show work. You know, the reality is, if we didn't have you anyway, Richard and I would learn something between ourselves.
Yeah.
This is a discussion, like a meeting that we have anyway,
Yeah.
offline. So when you think about it, you know, we're learning together, and hopefully you're learning at the same time as well, and we're learning from you. And it's a cooperative sort of engagement in how we do things.
Yeah, although we do have the basis of what we're going to talk about today as very unscripted, we do kind of just have a free conversation, and we do learn for you guys as well. So please interject and join in, and we'll try and get through the questions and comments at the end.
Yeah,
What you were saying.
I'm going to kick off. Actually, and I won't put this
Yeah,
one
go
up.
on.
Paul McMinee said, actually, afternoon, folks, fully agree. Organic growth is the key. Take your opportunities when it comes. Yeah, organic growth is everything. You ever had the phrase "easy come, easy go"?
Yeah,
it's true. It's organic growth is the best thing to do. You get most organizations, which when I was in corporate entity and the corporate world and board management and stuff like that, at managing director level or financial director level for me, and management teams, we always saw the path to growth as acquisition. The difficulty about acquisition, it is easy come, easy go, and you're trying to incorporate a different culture into what you're doing. Organic growth is brilliant because you are growing and the system is growing with you at the same time, and therefore the system doesn't no longer in the future becomes reliant on your input, because you've actually grown it to the stage where other people are taking part in what they're doing. There's no surprise that you're lettings director, Richard, and there's no surprise I have a sales manager in Perry as well. So I can oversee the whole thing and let you run your teams and let that do it, because I can't do everything. I can't cooperate with everybody every single time at every single occasion, because that would just blow my mind. And I did try to do that at one point.
Where did that get you?
Yeah, and it's basically a mental institution, literally.
It's a lot to do, yeah.
It's far too much. I mean, there's ups and downs in the economy. This is the one we're going to talk about, and these affect the earnings and investment levels of the nation. Moreover, it's important to create things like you had said, Richard, emergency funds to cope with issues like recession. By the way, where is the recession that we were supposed to have last year? Says a lot about, you've got to wonder what goes in from the government and the media. You've got to look at this actual facts and what your facts are, and not take on board what other people say their opinion is of where you are, unless it's actually factually true. And then that's when you can deal with the information at hand. I mean, you know, the hardships and the slowdown in the economy and anything like that, and inflation where it is now, and base rates going up as well. Base rates will continue to go up, by the way, just for a news flash. So if you're going to fix rates now, fix the rates now. I was lucky enough to fix 1.2 million last month before the quarter point went on, and before another quarter point, and I reckon base rates will probably go up to about 5%, but that's another story. So the moment it is ghastly and it's risky as business collapses and people lose their employment, that's what happens in recession. So you've got to what I call hedge yourself against that. This is what we're going to talk about today. You might be familiar with the situation during the recession when the companies cut their staff or downsize, the so-call it, or they call it right sizing because they don't want to say they're making. Oh, well, no, sorry, you just pay them off and that's it. You know, this isn't anything other than that. There's also the things about the prices and stock market fluctuations. In short, the liquidity of funds reduces the market, thus recessions is part of the economic cycle and expansion and contraction. I still think inflation's got a couple of years to go, and this cycle's still got to run because people are still trying to put their salaries up, their wages up, and they're fighting for that. And that's, you know, quite really so. That's why if you can't afford to live, then you need more money for that. But then and companies are starting to put their prices up as well. Banks are having to put their interest rates up as well to curb inflation. Inflation's right now. There's factors out of our control. So this is why this show is probably important, and these top tips are probably important to talk about right now in preparation for what is to come. Potentially what is to come. I'm not saying there's going to be a recession. I'm not saying we're going to be in like that, but you need to make sure you have the facts and information at hand in order to protect yourself of any exposure to anything that might happen. Don't let someone else control your future. That's the key.
Yeah, I think as you say, obviously, Jim, we're not at the point of recession, although it's been buzzed in the news and things. But to mitigate those factors in case that might happen is something that you should really do and think about where you're going to be as you move forward and things as well. The tips we're going to cover today, firstly, you spoke about employment. We're going to talk about obviously safeguarding your actual earning source, which is initially your job. And that's a really important thing. And like you say, people are now negotiating salaries and what have you. And that's going to be, I think, something that's going to happen progressively over the next year and possibly the next year or two.
Are we going to talk about salaries in here, about negotiating? Because I've got some great top tips for that.
We do. You could elaborate on that, which I'm sure you will anyway.
We'll come under that under pensions. Remember to talk about salaries and how to get your. Is anybody listening here that's in my? It works for me because I'm about to tell you how to get a salary increase. Richard, come in here.
But
anyway, let's talk about this then.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean,
talk about.
Sorry.
What's the first things we need to crack on with?
I think obviously safeguarding your earning source is quite an important thing. I think if you're in this kind of economy and if we are heading to recession or you end up in recession, if you lose your source of income, which in a recession might happen, businesses fail, people lose their jobs, then your source of income has gone, and then it might be possible that you can spend your savings in that situation where you've obviously lost your job and you've got savings to back you up. You might not have savings, so then you need to obviously look at them securing a new job or using your savings while you secure a new job, and you need to do that quite quickly. And if you're in a business where you have to ensure that you are obviously your further growth within a company or something to ensure that you keep your job even, then that's something that you need to think about as well. Securing your earning source and keeping it safe is really important, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And this type of economy where we are right now, I mean, there's a mass amount of jobs, about 1.1 million in Britain, compared to, you know, probably about 900,000 people. It would potentially be able to fill these jobs. So getting another job is quite easy in this sort of environment right now. And basically, you know, this is why salary inflation is coming in, because there's employers out there actually prepared to compete and actually pay a bit extra just to get that person on their books and get them started because of the lack of skills. It's more lack of skills. So being able to be multi-skilled in what you're doing makes yourself a very attractive to an employer.
Yeah,
very attractive. Hence the reason why I used to get involved in a lot of things in manufacturing, to understand how the paper's made, to understand how the process works, to understand how to engineer more profit out of something, how more yield out of something. So I expanded all my skills outside of the normal remit of my job. I used to do my job as quick as possible and get that out of the way, and then go straight to my boss and say, you got any more work for me to do? Have you got any stuff that you would do normally I could do? And then that way it gave me a bigger range of skills. So if I ever came to a position where I had to, where they had to compromise and they had to then say, look, we're going to have to look at some of the workforce and actually pay people off, I'd be the last in line, because I'd be indispensable. I've just made myself indispensable because I'm multi-skilled in all the different areas. So therefore, I'm not just a one-trick pony. I could do a lot of different things and adapt myself to other things, as well as in manufacturing. Whereas, you know, we struggled at one point in time in Macintosh, for example, ESA Macintosh, where I used to work as a financial controller there. We struggled to get a credit control manager. Here's a classic example. And you would think, well, a credit control manager is pretty straightforward. Well, it wasn't, because we were collecting millions and millions of pounds of work in progress payments from people like Amy Construction, Miller Construction, you know, all these big, huge corporate entities which were building schools, because we were subcontractors to them. And we were struggling to get payments all the time out of them because we needed cash to keep going. So therefore, we couldn't really get a normal credit control person. We had to get somebody who understood the process and was able to fight and negotiate as well, with big, huge contractors, and actually understand work in progress payments, which was an accountant's role, really. So it was decided after a period of about a year, not being able to get that skilled person. Tell you what, Jim, well, I put my hand up and said, I'll move into there, because we can get a financial controller quite easily, and I can keep myself my eye on the financial controller, and so can Alistair, who was the financial director at the time, and then we can make sure that person works perfectly, because we can get that job, and I can fill that other job in that other role and keep the business going. That's what makes you indispensable. When you're prepared to do that, when you're prepared to do that and you're multi-skilled in what you're doing, there's no one will get rid of you. And if they get rid of you, you just go to another company and say, I've got a huge skills range in this different areas, and the other company picks you up, no bother. Even in recessions, I mean, we've floated through recessions easily, or I have anyway. You know, it's never been a problem for me because of what I've done and my skill that I've acquired. So safeguarding your earning sources and making sure you're multi-skilled in your jobs are a great way to do it.
Yeah, definitely, to demonstrate your skill and make sure your employer's aware of that and appreciates that. Then it kind of secures your position within a company, or like you say, if you go to a new employer, then you're going to be obviously more attractive to them as a new employee if you're going to demonstrate, if you come with skills or can demonstrate skills. Another important thing, like you touched on it there, Jim, is to check the financial stability of the company that you work for, or if you're moving to a new company, obviously always look at that, because you're going to then invest your time and commit to that, and then it might just be close to going under, and they might just
I genuinely had that in the past, but I remember going for an interview and I actually did that. I actually checked out the company before I went, and the first thing I said to them was, like, I'm looking at your accounts right now and I'm thinking, are you going to be here next month? And they were a bit embarrassed, but they were quite upfront with me about where I was, about where they were, and lo and behold, for that reason, I actually didn't go with them. I just declined for that very reason, because I thought, there's no point in me joining someone to find out a month later that I'm no longer with them, especially where I am right now. And where I was right now is one of the important things you've got to kind of suck it up, if that makes sense. You maybe don't like where you are right now. You're maybe not enjoying your job where you are right now, but the reality is it gives you financial stability, because your lifestyle is going to be built outside of this. This is what we talk about right now in the Wealth Creation Show. It's not making a living, which is your job, it provides you from day to day. It's making a lifestyle outside of this, which is what we talk about every single week. It's about investing in property. It's about investing in stocks. It's about investing in your pensions. It's about investing in savings plans. It's about investing in yourself and your education outside of your normal day-to-day job, which will set you free later on.
In the long term.
But it takes time and effort and dedication. Are you prepared to pay that price? You've got to ask yourself. Now, I'll tell you.
Delayed gratification.
You'll either pay the price now or you'll pay it later. But at some point in time in your career of your life, or even your life, you will pay a price for what you've done or what you've not done. And you will answer to either yourself or you will answer to a boss, depending on how you approach this. I'm completely autonomous in what I do. I maybe run a company with you, Richard, and all the rest of it, but the reality is I'm completely autonomous outside of that.
Oh, definitely.
I don't rely on this. And this is where this is where we try and teach people to get to that level. It might be light years off, and you might not even comprehend that right now, but just think about this journey as climbing a mountain. You know, when you get to that sort of, I've just done that recently.
I'm just going to say,
examples, if you've seen that.
Good analogy.
If you've seen that, it's like climbing the mountain. You get over the first summit and you think, oh my God, there's another there's another part of this to climb. And then you get over that summit and you think, come on, there's another bit to climb. And then you get over that summit and you think, oh my, you're joking. The summit's over there. Then you realize the process, but taking these small steps in your mind incrementally at each time, and maybe just having faith that the bigger picture's there. You know, you can say, oh, have faith, be a believer. But it's true when I put my hand up like that. This is that feeling that people get when they put their hand up. If you ever see somebody in church and they put their hand up like this, and they put their hand up and they go, praise God, they have that exact same feeling I'm having right now. Is I have the complete faith in myself, in me, that I will be successful and I will be wealthy as a result of what I do. That is that feeling. And when I realized that was like for them in church, I thought, wow, what a rush. What a rush that is what they have. And that's, I now understand why people have faith and go to church and all the rest of it. It's like, it's an immense feeling of just your future is guaranteed to be successful.
Just that belief.
It's belief and faith.
True belief, yeah.
But it comes back to this time, what I talk about is belief and faith in yourself.
Yes.
You must have that. If you don't have that, you'll never excel in anything. You have to have that overwhelming belief and expectation out of yourself. You have to have a bit of like, you know, dare I say, big-headedness. And people will,
to a certain degree, I think.
They'll go, cocky bastard. It's like, and some people will be like that, and that's just the way they are. But you have to ignore these people. You have to just ignore these people, understand where you're going. They just don't get it. Don't try to convince them, by the way, because they'll drag you down even more. Just, if you know where you're going, focus on that. Get there as quick as you can, work out ways how to get there, become entrepreneurial, talk about these things as well, and you will get there. Whether it's £1,000, £500, £2,000, £3,000, £4,000 extra a month you want to make, it is entirely possible. And the good news is your future's in your hands.
Yeah.
And the bad news is, oh my God, your future's in your hands. You decide. Yeah.
Yeah, and that ties in nicely with what we spoke about last week in mindset and things as well. So, but yeah, definitely true. But as we say, obviously, back to employers and your current income stream and things. If you've got any doubt in the financial stability of your current employer or a new employer, then obviously look into that. And like you say, Jim, if you find out things that maybe didn't ring true or maybe look to be quite detrimental in the near future, then it's probably not something that you want to hang about to be involved in. Then look to move employer or upgrade, obviously, your employment status to something that maybe in your same field that you're in, but obviously maybe with a different company.
I think it's hilarious. See the people we've offered a job in the past, and they've then turned around and goes, oh, I can get £1,000 more out of someone else who I've gone to them. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You've just knocked back the biggest and best money machine you'll ever have in your life. The education you'll get, the experience you'll get, the heights that you could reach about what we could teach you and let you understand and set you free is unbelievable. And you've traded that for another £1,000.
I think a big part of our business model is education and continually developing knowledge. And I mean, I know how much I've learned in the last decade or so, and you couldn't even really put a price on it, to be honest, because it's.
Thank you. It's literally priceless. It's literally priceless. The information and I'm not just saying it's about me, because remember I stand on the shoulders of giants. It's like, you know, it's everybody that's come before me that's done this and allowed me to create this out of the education I've learned from them. It's the Tony Robbins, it's the Simon Sinek is right now. I'm learning from the now about relationships, about understanding yourself. All these different things, you know, Steve Bartlett, Diary of a CEO, Johann Hari, about, you know, the addictions, and understanding you. That's the more important thing. To be successful, it's not about, dare I say, taking advantage of other people. It's actually bringing other people with you and allowing them to be successful as well. And when they come with you, you know, everybody, it's a rising tide lifts all ships. Anyway, we could go on about this forever, and I could talk about this, but you know, but we're getting off script here. Probably the next one for me is enhancing your savings to overcome the challenges of recession, and you know, and where we are right now, cost of living crisis. Incidentally, I can't stand it. The cost of living. Oh, right, okay, there's a cost of living. It's like, can I not just live? Does there have to be a cost to it?
No,
It's a weird thing but they've coined this phrase, so we'll stick with it. And you have a substantial part of your income in the recession. You have to save a substantial part of your income every single month. Now, a classic example right now is we have an offset mortgage policy. They insist that you still pay the interest that was due, but they use that interest and they actually use it as capital reduction in your mortgage. And I'm thinking, I'm happy as Larry's with that, because I had been saving £800 every single month for the last 20 years. And I've actually just I stopped that in January because that was that program finished that I was saving on, and it's perfect. That money can now go to this. So you know, for me, that's a habit of a lifetime. So you can make this list of your expenses, such as your rent, your car, your payments, your insurance premiums, small expenses made and stuff like that, and groceries. And at the end of the month, you total all these expenditures and check if there's any item that can be reduced on the list. In other words, this list will provide you with the data on expenses that have been made, and will also give you an outlook to use of the useless expenditures that you're making, and it'll help you increase your savings.
And we all have these useless expenditures, without a doubt.
I'll guarantee you, anybody out there, regardless of what income you've got, I will be able to eliminate hundreds of pounds from that income level. By the fact that you're making useless, expensive purchases, possibly, that you don't even need. It maybe makes you feel absolutely fantastic at this point in time, but I'll tell you, a couple of weeks down the road, that Gucci handbag isn't going to save you. You know, the Louis Vuitton and all the rest of it.
We done the show on expenses and things. And I remember when we done the show on expenses and we looked at like the breakdown of what you actually spend each month, and I made changes in myself even, and I know there's still further ones to make, but even those changes that I've made, I've noticed the difference already.
How to survive the cost of living crisis is on the Wealth Creation Show, on the playlist, on our Wealth Creation playlist. So find that one, tune into it, because we demonstrated how to clearly eliminate £500 to £1,500 from your actual expenditure every single month. So if you're sitting there at this point in time, greeting in your milk or your tea or your cornflakes or whatever, and thinking, I can't survive with the way this is going, I'll guarantee you there'll be something in that show, the cost of living crisis show we did, it will actually be able to save you an absolute fortune. You just don't know it. You don't know what you don't know because you've created so many habits to where you are now that you're actually still following these habits thinking it's going to save you, when in actual fact it's not.
Yeah, definitely. The savings, there's always savings to be made, and there's always these expenditures that aren't needed. So yeah, watch that show. That's quite a good way to break that down and get a better idea. Like you say, you don't know what you don't know. The next one is investments. And obviously people, they'll probably invest sums in short-term and long-term plans and things. So if you have to keep a constant eye on your short-term investments, then you maybe find that the risk of them, they're probably not worth their while in the long run. And you'd probably be better putting your money and your savings into investments for the longer term. And we always say, especially like obviously property and things, but people do invest in things like silver and gold, like we spoke about before, and people do dividends and stock market and things as well. But as far as long-term investments, I think long-term property investment is what we obviously predominantly speak about.
Residential, boring, they call them vanilla lets. You know, boring vanilla lets. In other words, boring. You find a property, you fill a property, you refinance the property, and you learn the basic fundamentals of how to do that every single time on a rinse and repeat cycle, and you will be successful over the next 10 to 20 years. It is no doubt. I used to say every single time I could show you how to be a millionaire in 10 years, and everybody used to go, oh, that's a lot of rubbish. That can't be right. It's like, well, I've done it. So I could do it, and I could show you how to do it. And we demonstrate this every single time in the shows that we're doing. And most people will just laugh and go, that's no possible. Yeah, it's just Jim talking. And it's like, well, you only get, there's only one 5% group in the world, and it's the 5% group is 4% of these people are financial independent, and 1% of these people are mega rich. You know, they're wealthy. That's wealth. Rich. That's no rich as in, oh, I earn the biggest amount of money. That's rich as in wealth. You can't destroy wealth, really. It's once you've got it, and you've learned how to keep it. And this is what investments is all about. You know, how to develop wealth. I'm not interested in. I am interested in how to develop earnings in order to invest for wealth. So there's two different things. There's your income and there's your wealth creation. Yeah, your cash and your income is what generates and invests into your creation of your wealth. You need that to do that. So that's why I talk about what you do day to day is most important in order to generate that income, in order to invest for the future. Invest, and that's why we talk about investments, such as the short-term and the long-term plans. But property is my bag every single time. I do have, and we'll talk about the pension contributions later on and talk about that as well. But the next one for me is investing in discounted stocks. Incidentally, this morning, actually, and this is not a stock pick, by the way, Glencore is one I invest in through my pension plan. Glencore is actually sitting at 460 now, and UBS UBS, I think it is actually predicting that it should really be at 560. Glencore is an exploration company. It does things like your mobile phones and stuff, all the minerals that go into that. That's Glencore. It does that, but that's in my pension fund, and I don't administer that. That's administered by Standard Life Investments. But that, for me, is a blue chip stock. That's a good one, and it's completely undervalued right now, I would say. But it's because people like Rio Tinto and other mining companies are making more money in the same field. That's why that one's undervalued, because it's supply and demand. More people will want to invest in these because they're making more money. But these things are slow burners. They're swings and roundabouts, and over a period of time, stocks smooth out to make a steady return. And that's the most important thing for your investments for the future. Investing in discounted stocks, you have to make sure you can invest in highly discounted stocks that provide you with diversification among funds that can buy you deeper discounts overall. The stocks and the values vary every 6 months, and as the stock market is rising, you can sell these stocks or keep them. But with this, you should know about, there's things like borrowing. There's borrowing mechanisms and how to leverage that position as well. But we'll maybe not go into that in this show and how to do it. But it is something we might talk about in the future. Probably the next one is most important for me, tracking your net worth. I could literally produce a spreadsheet. It shows my net worth right now. And I won't do that.
No, but what's interesting, Jim, and we touched on it before, is that to start with, and for a good while into your journey back in the beginning, you didn't ever do that. Wasn't it till a certain point, and then you thought,
I never tracked my net worth until the day I left. No, actually, until even when I left my employment, because my employment was based on, I left my employment because I was earning 6 times the revenue of what I was earning in my job.
Yeah.
In 1.5 days a week. That's why I left. And so I thought, you should have left long before that. And you're probably right, but I never tracked my net worth or anything like that. But when I look back on it for my blogs and stuff like that, and I look back on it last year, I actually realised when I left Macintosh, my net worth was 1.3 million, and that was 18 years ago. So you can imagine what it could be now, considerably more. But I was gobsmacked because I really wanted to be a millionaire, and I was 38 and I wanted to be a millionaire by the time I retired at 65. So it's probably important to actually track your net worth. And I think it's important from the point of view that I started tracking it. It was more on the lines that by tracking it, I understood what equity I had. So if I wanted to then go to the bank and borrow, there's no surprise that the bank said to me, look, you can have 100% funding and we'll give you 1.9 million. And they just said that last week. So that kind of tells you, but that's because I got a track of my net worth, and I just show that to them, and they can't argue with that. Most bank managers come to me and say, I can't really argue with that.
And do you think you should be doing that? Like, should you do that monthly? Should you do that quarterly? Should you do it annually?
I just think you should. I think you should. Anybody who wants to get into a habit of doing it should at least do it monthly.
Right. Okay.
Because I used to do budgets every month. For when I first started, I was, I was obviously studying accountancy when I first started as a student. But I just got into the habit of tracking my income and expenditure every single month. And it was literally just because I made sure everything went through my bank and I was never using cash. Therefore, I was able to track it. So I was able to get a handle on what we were spending, where we were spending it, and I was able to then work on there about how we could, not how we could cut back, but how we could be more efficient in our spending and use it in different ways. And then that would allow money to be released to actually reinvest back into property. And so there was no surprise at that point in time. Is I just kept plowing everything into property. If I got an extra bonus or I got something from work, it was never, what could we go, let's go on a holiday. It was never that. It was like, let's invest in more in property every single time. Let's invest more. I had a wee dabble with stocks when I was, individually, and I did make a wee bit of money out of that, but not huge amounts. But there was one particular stock, it was the company I worked with, that I knew was a sure winner. And I did a Monte Carlo or bust on it, but I made, in literally in 3 months, I made about £40,000 in profit.
See, that's quite a lot. And what I was going to say is if you're keeping track of this, say, on a monthly basis, then you're maybe not going to see a big changes on a monthly basis on the short term. But then over the long term, you are going to see changes. But then obviously
you see
to the contrary.
How did I do that? And I'll tell you how I did that, and how did I know that, and how did I see that opportunity. I was tracking my income, what I had coming in, but I was also tracking what I had saved, not really my net worth. So I knew what I had. So when the opportunity appeared, I was ready to jump on it. So I bought it 20 pence a share. I literally owned almost 3% of the company at the time. And I was actually marched in front of the managing director, and he said to me, we have to ask you as part of our reporting requirements for PLC, if you intend to actually either put a takeover bid in for the company or you want to buy more stock than 3% of the stock, because you've got to report that to the city.
Yeah.
So the person I was working for, the employer I was working for, I could have been one of the biggest shareholders at that time. Work that one out.
Yeah, that's good.
But then it was just basically, I knew where it was going. I knew what they were doing. I knew there was good things coming out of them. I knew there was going to be good results. I didn't have privy to that information, by the way, because that's insider trading. So we checked all that beforehand. I had to get clearance from the investment securities. But I was then allowed to sell them 3 months later at 60 pence a share.
Right. Okay.
That's a good.
That is a good.
Yeah, that's a good margin in 3 months. That paid for my place in Spain.
That is obviously really good, and that's that's a good situation that you were in.
The most important point of that, Richard, the most important point to say that, and the reason I tell this story is because I was prepared and ready.
Yeah.
When the opportunity came, preparation. The point of the success is all about preparation and opportunity meeting.
Yeah.
And the point of readiness happening. That's what success is all about. Mm-hmm. So if you make sure you're prepared and you're there, and when the opportunity appears, you're ready to go. And I've always been ready to go every single time. Hence the reason why I've not moved forward with this commitment from the bank. But I know these funds are there if I want it. So when it does come to that opportunity,
the time's right, you're ready to go. Yeah. If that arises.
Now, this is on a bigger scale, and people would think, oh God, I'll never get to that point. But I used to do that in a smaller scale, even with one property, even with 2 properties. So I used to do that in 1 property at a time. I used to know exactly I was ready. So as soon as a property came onto the market, I knew I was in a position to do something, and everybody knew round about me. It was like all the estate agents knew straight away I was ready to proceed. This guy's cast iron. He what he says is definite. He will never pull out. He has the funds available. They were able to convince everybody every single time for that reason, because I had track record now.
Yeah, I was going to say, you built that track record, and you had agents and people approaching you because they knew that you were ready to go.
And that's why it's important to track your net worth, so you know you're in that position to do that. This follows on to planning for the future.
Yeah.
To get over the challenges of anything that might come on the horizon, cost of living crisis or recessions, you should make proper planning, investing and earning. And it's not good to make financial decisions suddenly. Therefore, you should take the time and then plan for the future accordingly according to the present financial
Yes.
and market state you're in right now, and the circumstances you're right now. If you get a classic one for me is, I've not got any money to save. Okay, so if you get a salary rise, do not absorb that into your day-to-day spending. Put it into a savings account.
Yeah.
That's where you start. If you get a wee bit an extra, if you work an extra hour a week, that proved it. Where one guy was like, I'm doing the pub drinking 50 quid's worth a week on a Sunday night, or I could be working at Diageo having a night shift. And it's like, well, work at Diageo having a night shift, and then by the time you get to the end of the year or the end of 10 years, you'll have about £100,000.
Yeah, and
in
we
your
used
investment
that.
strategy.
We used that example, and you said about putting it in. The next thing we're going to talk about is pensions. So obviously, and you had obviously put that into a pension and over a certain period of time, and it was amazing how much that compounded up.
Yeah. Newsflash: when we're talking about pensions, your employer's pension is not going to save you.
No.
Do you know why that is the case? Because everyone else has got an employer's pension. Everyone else will have the same standard of living when they retire and when you retire at the same time. So what you've got now is exactly what you're going to get when you retire on your employer's pension. It will be no different. Oh, I hear you say, but I'll not have a mortgage anymore, and I'll not have it. But you'll have your children to look after as well still, because they won't be able to afford a house, and you'll have to bail them out more than likely. Or you'll want to do something for the future, and literally your pension will be 2/3 of what you couldn't afford to live on in the first place. This is why you need to do extra over and above your pension for the future to have the lifestyle you want. If you want to retire early at 55-year-old, you're going to have to do this, because compounding is not going to be that great, because it happens more between the 55 and the 65. But are you going to risk waiting until 65? Because you might be dead. You'll never get the benefit of that. So let's live for today. And that doesn't mean let's run out and spend all our money. What I mean is, let's retire a wee bit earlier and have the options to continue to work, but not be forced to continue to work, because you've got your pension now and you've got it planned for 55 retirement. Now, the government's going to put that up, by the way, to 57, 58. You see what's happening in France now? It's like, holy shit. We get announced that we're going to put the pension up to 67-year-old, and everybody goes, oh, that's terrible. You go to France and they say you're putting up to 57. They're like in the streets with riots, millions of people in the streets, blasting and trashing the place. And we're like, oh, it's a completely different mentality, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's true what you say. And also, I mean, that's something when you say about obviously thinking about your kids and things as well. It's something that we see quite more often now, Jim, is that first-time buyers and things are relying on the bank and mum and dad to help them get onto the ladder and have that cash to be able to get onto their first-time purchase and things as well.
I did say I was going to talk about salaries when I was on 401.
Yes, when you were
the pensions. So it was on 401 pensions. So salaries. Let's talk about quickly how to get a salary rise out your employer.
I'll just go make a coffee.
you don't put your hand out and say, "Can I get a salary rise?" Because inflation's gone up. That's no the answer to it, because everybody's doing that, and that's where you get enthralled in the, oh, well, this is the inflationary position we can't afford because it's universal for everybody. You want to negotiate for you, okay? So you have to have clear evidence of what you've done over and above your normal day-to-day job.
Yeah.
Where you've added value, and you have to get that quantified into pounds, shillings, and pence. When you demonstrate that to your employer, that this is what you've done over and above your normal day-to-day job, and you've quantified extra over in pounds, shillings, and pence, that is where your employer really can't say no.
Yeah.
And to me, I would hire that person. If you're out there, by the way, and you're no part of our organisation yet, and you kind of know that, as in your employer doesn't appreciate it for it, come and speak to us. Because we love these type of people, because as this people are self-starters, they're self-generators, and they generate their own income in a company.
You can tell who they people are.
Yeah, they from day one, they're generating income because they know how to do it. It's become a habit. They know how to generate income all the time. They know, no matter where they are. You could drop them on a desert island with 1,000 other people and give every single people £1 million, and these are the people that will have all the money at the end of 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
these people are worth their weight in gold. These are the people I call the unicorns. Very few. You don't get unicorns that very much, but if you're out there and you're tuning into this right now and you are a unicorn, you need to speak to us. That's how to get a salary rise at your employer. Now, it's a negotiation, by the way. It's like,
it is a negotiation, but I think
it's not my way or the highway or I'm leaving. It's like, you've got to understand your employer might not be in a position to do that. But then you can say, if I generate a certain amount over and above what we're doing normally, you know, can I get some sort of commission or some sort of bonus for doing that extra? So there's another way to do that as well. So you get some sort of commitment based on and at the end of the day, if you generate something at your normal day-to-day job and it's agreed with your employer and you're getting a bonus for it, then go for it. Because it's business they wouldn't have got possibly. Then the employer obviously has the phrase about, you know, why did you not do that before?
Yeah.
Well, you just coasting it in line.
I was just going to say, were you just coasting before?
Think to yourself, I'll just wait till he agrees with a bonus with me, and then I'll pull all the stops out. You know, that's not the type of person we want.
Yeah, like you say, it is a negotiation, but if you could clearly demonstrate how you have added value or how you can add value, then it's going to make that negotiation a lot easier.
Yeah, and do you know how I know that? Because you need to send one to catch one. Because I think all these different things as well, and I think, well, that's how I could have done it, and that's it. But I never ever did it like that. But I know it. I know that's typically what we've caught people in the past doing that. We've caught people that we've done KPIs and reports for over the years. As we've been a financial controller, and you know, they've worked in management positions. We've done KPIs for them, and I'm like, you're at it, pal. You're deliberately manipulating these figures in order for you to get your bonus. And then, you know, next minute they've been marched out the door because the managing director has clearly seen what we've just demonstrated of what they've been doing and up to in order to manipulate the bonus based on these figures. So, you send one to catch one, if that makes sense to anybody out there.
Yeah.
Poacher turned gamekeeper.
Yeah.
Literally. So you didn't get one over on me.
Yeah. So and then that brings us on to, I didn't like to call it passive income. We'll call it cash flow generation.
Yeah, it's income you generate out your normal day-to-day job, and it's not reliant really on what you do. Although you do have to do something to it. Let's be honest. There's no such thing as passive income. What's your thoughts on this, Richard?
Yeah, and I think obviously creating income, or like I say, as a passive income or passive investing, and it can cover things like your general living expenses, and do you know what I mean? It gives you that extra money out with what your job and your general income gives you, and this would make your day-to-day job, it would enhance obviously the income that you have for your day-to-day job, and give you a more financial independence, and it would enable you to pursue obviously your dreams with work, maybe regards to obviously paying structures and things, and you may no longer have to pay the costs of things that you already have as a main kind of detriment to your income just now. They may cover costs like things like insurances and things like that. They could cover all these day-to-day living expenses if you've got that additional.
I used to get phone calls about, you know, it's like we're trying to sell you life insurance, and all the banks and building societies and stuff like that used to phone you up and say, but you need to take life insurance. I'm going, self-insured.
Yeah, so you don't need it because you've got that additional income. Because
my income, my residual income, it runs outside of me. It doesn't need my ability to perform. Actually covers me and will cover me for my job income. So if I lost my job, or if I wasn't able to do my job, my income from my investments will actually cover that quite easily.
Yeah.
And I've never grown to the stage. This is a key here. This is a key strategy here. I've never gone to the stage where my spending every single month has gone to the case of it's got to I have to be reliant on my residual income or passive income as well as my job income. So in other words, I've not committed to things like lease agreements for cars. I've not committed to a bigger mortgage on my house. I've not committed to, loans or credit cards I've got to do. I've not committed to going on a holiday and then having to pay it off stuff like that. These are things that are no-nos for me, because they are constant drains on your income every single month, and that means you have to earn a certain amount every single time in order to cover that. So you've got nowhere to go with that, no scope to be flexible enough to actually bring your income level down, because you're stuck at that level. This is why I talk about people being broke at a different level.
Yeah.
You know, there's people out there earning £150,000 and they're still broke. And to most of us, we go, oh my God, 150. I have
How
never.
could you be broke at that level?
By the way, I have never earned £150,000 in my life. And I will never earn £150,000 in my life, because the tax bill on that would be horrendous.
Yeah.
I'd increase my wealth by £150,000 because there's no tax on that, and increasing wealth, well, inheritance tax when you die, but that's clever planning. You can get rid of that. But I will never earn £150,000 in income. But because that's what gets you to broke at a different level, because they've got the bigger houses, they've got the bigger car, they've decided to go for the Ferrari, or they've decided to go for the Bentley, or things like that, and it's like it's just broke at a different level. That's not the game I want to play.
Yeah.
You know, it's you see that. I tell you what, we saw it recently. One of the people that we know actually have only been in property for a year. They've obviously fallen on great times now, and they're going well, and they're doing very, very well. But we saw them on their holiday, and they're in first class, business class accommodation. And they're business class, and they're first class for everything. And I'm like, oh my God.
Of course,
you don't get this. It's like you don't reward yourself that early. That's crazy. It's only now, after 30 years, that I've rewarded myself last year for business class. And that's 30 years.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, my net worth's a hell of a lot more than his. I'll never, ever have to rely on anybody else and working for the rest of my life.
A good example of that, Jim, is we talk about obviously passive income or cash flow, and you have obviously built that up over the years. And one of the benefits you've seen of that, when we speak about maybe reduced or eliminating insurances and things, is when you used private healthcare as opposed to NHS, because you were obviously in a position to be able to do that, and that was because
I'm a runner.
Sorry, on you go.
Yeah, I'm a runner. I love triathlon, and I was really into triathlon. COVID's put me out of it, and my habits and all the rest of it. But one of the things that happened when I went into the London Marathon, the Edinburgh Marathon, and a standard triathlon, is I burst my ankle. I also had a problem with my knee as well, and I went to Stuart Barton along at East Neuk, and he touched my knee straight away, and I went, oh Jesus, I know what it is, because I about hit the roof. It was like you just touched a wee bit of my knee, and I just like hit the roof. I could not believe it, and I've been suffering for all my life with this, and I didn't realise. And lo and behold, that's what it was. It was just an operation that needed to take some of the cartilage away and to polish the front of my kneecap, and job done. And then rehabilitation after that. The NHS was going to take at least about a year to a year and a half, and it's like by that time I'll be completely unfit and I'll not be able to do anything, and it'll be worse for me because it'll be aggravating every single day. So I thought, to hell with it. This is what I did this for, just for these exact reasons. There's a wee tooth at the front of me as well, by the way, in here. And then what happened to that tooth at the front? I had it for years, and I had chronic pain in it, and it was basically filled and root filled and all the rest of it. And it had caused me complete aggravation for years. And I went private with that as well. I actually just got I went to a proper orthodontist, or whatever you call them, in Edinburgh, a surgeon. I got referred to them, a private clinic. They put pig bone in order to build my bone back up in my lower jaw, and then that bone was fused in, and then they drilled a post into there, and they then fixed the tooth back on at the front. Job done. I have never had pain for the last 10 years with that, and yet for the first 10 or 15 years I was in absolute agony every single time, and it aggravated and caused me all that bother all the time. That's what this type of thing is to do. That's
improved the quality of your life, and saved you so much time and money.
This is what passive income's for. This is the whole point. This is what you want to do. It's not to buy the Ferraris and the Lamborghinis. It's not to buy the biggest house on the block. It's to actually be able to look after you and to look after the people round about you, and actually help your community as well as a result. As far as I'm concerned, there's an obligation. If you can, you must.
I think live comfortably and create happiness. And we say obviously money can't buy you happiness, but It
Have
could
you
do a
tried
damn
it
sight.
lately?
Yeah, could do a damn sight to get you there anyway. But
Usually broke people say that. Usually
yeah,
people that are skint say, money can't buy you happiness. And I first to say, have you tried it lately? Because it goes a long way to do it.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, cash flow, passive income, as referred to. So a lot of that comes from, in your case, Jim, and people, is obviously investment properties and buying investment properties. So let's have a wee chat about investment properties and buying, particularly in times of economic turndown and
Yeah.
recession and things, buying properties, which a lot of people tend to think, oh, I'm going to sell up, and we see a lot of it just now. Whereas really,
I'm buying, by the way. If
it's a
anybody's
good
selling,
time
I'm
to
buying.
buy. Yes, yeah. During recession, obviously, and economic turndown, housing markets do obviously. They fall, obviously, prices and things, and people tend to get a bit, obviously we've seen a lot of it. People on the fence, and people that are just clearly like, I'm selling up, I'm walking away.
Yeah.
And they've given up a lot. Some of them have given up quite a lot of good opportunities or good investments just sheerly by making decisions kind of hesitantly. No, not hesitantly, but obviously
Emotionally.
emotionally. That's the word I'm looking for.
Emotionally. They take the decision
Yes.
emotionally because they feel that they can't do this anymore because it's an emotional turmoil on them, where they don't realise if they weather the storm, the sunshine will appear later on.
Yeah.
And this is what happens. And I realised that out the credit crunch, where I weathered the storm through the credit crunch, most people exited or lost. And I was geared properly and it looked after me, that vehicle that I'd actually created. And that was the credit crunch came just after my leaving my work. So I was actually quite fortunate to be able to survive because all my expenses and that were based on one person earning income. That was it. So
Yeah.
that's how I do it. If two people are working and your family unit, or your where you are, if two people are working, make sure you just survive on one income. Make sure you can survive on one income. And you might have the luxuries and all the rest of it, but make sure these luxuries can be turned off like a tap. So
Yeah.
then, therefore, you can survive on one income. So always have that as your base, where you've always got one income. That way, you'll always be free. You'll never be controlled by an employer. You'll never be controlled by anybody else outside of this, because you're spreading your risk. You're making it easier for yourself. So buying investment properties, by the way, the first time we've just agreed this, Richard, with a PIN. So with Simon Zushi's Property Investors Network, this is the first time and probably the last time I'll ever appear on anyone else's stage. I have agreed to do the Property Investors Network on the 15th of June in Edinburgh. And I will be talking about how to guarantee your success in property, no matter what market you're in. How to guarantee your success in property, no matter what market you're in. Now, is there an upsell there? No. It's just, I felt like I'm going to put myself out of my comfort zone. I'm going to go into somebody else's stage and I'm going to do a talk. So, and I thought, what better to talk about and how to guarantee your success in property? Cast iron guarantee. I've done it. I know how to do it, and I do it every single time. So this is why buying investment properties is the most important thing, because to me, it's the best vehicle to set you free. Yes, you can complain about, oh, the Scottish government pushing us all out of the market. No, you're pushing yourself out of the market. You're the one that's decided to exit because you can't handle the heat.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't realise, with my experience over the last 30 years, this is nothing new.
Yeah, ride out the storm.
We've had governments come and go, and this is just another storm to weather. You just batten down the hatches. You make sure you're geared properly. You use the advantages that you've been given, because there is advantages in this with what the government's done, by the way. And we will talk about that on other shows, and we do talk about that on other shows actually. But you can invest in investment properties in any market, in a booming market. I mean, even the booming market, I bought another 20 the year before.
Yeah.
And everybody went, well, that's a booming market. It's like, hey, it made absolute sense, and it was at the right numbers.
The logic in that is that people are selling at that point in time because they are scared, obviously, what's going on, and don't want to weather out the storm, and they're selling at a loss. So you're picking it up at a good price, but then rents are still increasing. Mm-hmm. So you're making a good return on them.
Mortgages are still getting destroyed in their value because the mortgage is still the same. The finance is more or less still the same if you've fixed the rate, and therefore when the rent increases, it's quids in. You make sure you look after your stock. You make sure to invest in your stock. Again, I invest quite a substantial amount back in my stock every single time because I know that will reap the benefits for the future. It's like planting more trees in the orchard and getting more apples at the end of it. It's going to cost an investment in time to do that, but then you're getting more harvest at the end. That's what property investment's all about. The next one for me is probably, if you're struggling, this is one of the ones that we used to talk about, network marketing. Where my mentors used to come to me in network marketing, and I used to say, I can't afford a ticket to go to this function. And they'd go, what can you sell? And I'm like, I've not got anything to sell. So, you got a TV? And I went, yep, you don't need your TV. It's the one-eyed monster that will suck the brain right out of you. So sell your TV. I tell you what, I sold some stuff to make that happen. And I had other people that sold cars and we sold everything. And it's like, that's why we are where we are, because we were all in to pay the price we needed to pay to get to where we wanted to go.
Yeah.
That's the case. And I don't advocate anybody else. You know, it's up to you whether you want to do this or not, or whether you want to follow that pattern of success. But that's what I was prepared to do. That was the price I was prepared to pay. I would do anything to succeed. I would go, you know me, I'll go to the opening an envelope of a further my cause. And literally that is it. You know, it is all about getting it. So there's easy ways to make money during recession. On you know, there's loads of opportunities now. I mean, the days we had, it's like all these years ago. I mean, it was 35 years ago. My mentors were talking to me about this. You didn't have eBay, you didn't have Amazon, you didn't have Facebook Marketplace. You could easily do that nowadays. So in order to raise a 50 quid here and there, I mean, what would you do with another £600 a year in your hand?
Yeah.
Hey, that would be great. Yeah, we'll just sell something and make 50 quid a month. Sell some stuff every single month. Go on and find out stuff that's cheap and then go and sell it on. Go on.
A lot of people do that now. A lot of people do that now. And it's not just like Gumtree and things.
Be an Amazon assistant. Be an Amazon, you know, what they're called affiliates. And you get
affiliate marketing.
You actually go on and promote a product and you sell that product on an Amazon affiliate. Just do something like that. TikTok does it as well. You know, there's loads and loads of opportunities.
See a lot of that on TikTok, the affiliate marketing things.
And people go, I'm not going to get out of bed for 20 quid. And it's like, okay, so what are you doing now? Oh, sorry, you're broke. It's like, but you've got such a moral stance that you're prepared to stay broke for the rest of your life. It's like, get off your high horse and climb down out your ivory tower and get to work. That's what I say. It's not. I mean, you know, I remember Norman Tebbit used to say this years ago. Now, whether you like Norman Tebbit or no, but he used to say, "Get on your bike and look for opportunity," and that was a big phrase in the 1980s. Get on your bike and look for it. So that's the sort of thing. There is opportunity out there everywhere. You know, it's like, oh, I've not got a chance to make. Go and shine shoes outside Sainsbury's supermarket if that's the case. Oh no, I don't think I could stoop to that. It's like, all right, but you're struggling to eat.
You can't be that
struggling to eat, but you can't stoop to that. It's when I became a window cleaner, when I was an accountant, in between my dad, you know, I went to work with my dad for a couple of weeks. It's like, folk goes, have you fallen from great heights that you've got to resort to being a window cleaner? I'm like, you have no idea. You have no idea about the wealth that I've got.
But it doesn't mean you can't have a side hustle,
I just chuckled to myself with people like that and thought, you don't have a clue. You're our own, what we call status, holds us back, where we think we stand in society and among our friends. But newsflash, status doesn't pay the bills. What people think doesn't pay the bills. It doesn't give you any future. It doesn't give your kids any future. So suck it up and move on. And to hell with everybody else. If people think like that and they want to pull you back to where you are right now, get rid of them out of your life. They're toxic for you.
Surround yourself with the right people.
This is what we're talking about, going into survival mode as well. During recessions as well, you have to change your mindset and make money and concept and make money concepts actually start from here. And this is why we talk about this. This is survival mode. Status doesn't pay the bills. You know, struggling doesn't pay the bills. Getting by doesn't pay the bills. It doesn't give you any lifestyle. So just climb down out your ivory tower, brush yourself off and get on with it. And to hell with everybody else. The people that are with you will champion you and celebrate your success and say, go for it. The people that want you to be just like them, which is basically the people that are broke at a different level and have this Instagram appearance every single day, and they don't tell you they're broke at a different level, are the people that will hold you back and say, oh, you're not doing that, are you? And then they'll talk about you behind your back to other people, your friends, and they'll say all these things about you. They're toxic. You don't need them in your life. Get rid of them. This is what survival mode's all about. This is where it comes to the crunch. So you have to keep a thought in mind of as well of spend less and earn more. This is the first thing I look in every business. It's like you look at a business and they go, oh, do we need to cut back? And I'm like, no. The first thing you should be looking at is, do we need to generate more sales, and how can we do that? Because the sales then alleviate that position. Yes, you can cut back. You don't cut back to the point that you cut into the bone. Because instead of trimming the fat, you end up trimming the flesh and cutting the bone.
And then that stops you from making more income.
That's more detrimental. And then the top line suffers as a result. So this is why I've said to you, it's like, okay, in order to hit these sales targets, we need more people. And I've said to Perry, in order to hit these sales targets, we need more people. Where you guys were thinking, we'll just do that on what we're doing now. And it's like, no.
Yeah.
No, you need more resources in to do this. This will not be achievable, and it will not be sustainable if you don't do that. That's what running the business is all about. And working on it rather than in it. Probably the just before the final one about where you go next is a recession is not a time to level money in the banks or in the hands of people for which is complicated to collect. In other words, take cash as it ensures you that you're more protective in system failures. So in other words, what I mean is make sure your liquidity is right.
Yeah.
So in other words, make sure you've got something else at the side that you could actually use in case you do run out of cash. Make sure you've got these liquid funds. And a lot of people actually say, oh, but I'm paying down my mortgage. That's a great idea. No, it's not. Sometimes that's not, especially if you've not got cash reserves, because what will happen is if you could, I knew this, I saw this happen in the credit crunch. I'm interest only on all my buy-to-let mortgages, even on my house mortgage. And the reason I'm interest only is because if you start paying that debt down, what happens when the credit crunch came along is all these people that I knew had paid their capital repayment mortgages on all their buy-to-lets as well were not allowed to borrow against these properties anymore because the value had dropped so much. Now, I was in negative equity with most of mine, but it didn't matter because I still had rents coming in to cover everything all the time, so the banks never bothered. They weren't bothered about that at all. But I still had a huge pile of cash as well because I had made sure that I was able to do repairs and improvements all the time. That's why I'd kept it aside, because in a downturn, that's what you need to keep doing. Or what happens is you lose your client, which is your tenant, because they move to a better standard property and you're not looking after it, and therefore you lose your income as well. That's like cutting into the bone, isn't it?
Yeah, that's not a good position to be in.
So make sure you've got liquid funds aside somewhere. Remember, you don't need to have an ISA. You can have a standard deposit account because you're given that personal allowance of £1,000 a year in interest anyway. And I don't think anybody's going to have funds enough to earn £1,000 a year at the interest rates you're getting now. And if you are, maybe you're not needing this show.
Yeah, I was going to say it.
Maybe you should come and join the show. Maybe you should give me a shout and you can come on next week. The final one for me is probably buying a business. During a recession, you have the chance to buy. You have the chance to buy a business that is in a loss or not in a good state. There's businesses out there now. I know one in the high street. There's the coffee shop in the high street now. I know somebody else is probably going to move into that soon, and I know who that person is. Thus, you could buy businesses which are potentially on their knees, but you have the probably skills and the talents to be able to turn them around to actually make something out of them. Most millionaires, by the way, are made in a recession. I'll say that again. Most millionaires are made in a recession because they weather the storm, and then when it picks up, they don't need to start from scratch when it's picking up again. They're already in a position to capitalize on the upswing because they're there already. So that's why you weather the storm, for that reason. And perfectly for looking for opportunities for buying businesses when you're in a recession and buying people that want to exit. Because
and I was just going to say, and buying property at that point as well with people that are exiting. Yeah,
it's perfect for doing that. I kind of think that's it, where we are. I mean, you know, the factors like the government, the world economy, the inflation rates, the unemployment rates, and things like that, you cannot control. You can only control the things within your means, and that's all you should look at. But you should be prepared in case anything changes on things like by doing sensitivity analysis, by doing risk analysis. And again, these are shows on the Wealth Creation Show on our YouTube channel and Fife Properties TV, that in their playlist, that we talk about how to do that and how to hedge yourself in times like this.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of people recently make hasty decisions with their portfolios and their properties and things because of obviously the situation. I think the best advice really is, you know, continue to be positive, stay calm. It's probably a good policy to adopt in times of challenging economy and things as well. And although we all know that a recession is the worst situation, that there is obviously benefits of weathering through that.
Susan Allen have asked the best question ever.
I've just seen Susan's question.
And we'll come to that, Susan. We'll come to that one, because I tell you what, you've nailed it, and I'll give you the answer to this, because I never saw this as well. But I tell you what, this will blow you out the water when you understand the concept behind this. Is that us? We're going to go to questions.
Yeah, that's we'll do questions now, Jim.
Yeah, let's have a look through. Well, I'll have a look through the TikTok brigade, see what they're going. Any property on the market for 15k in Fife? No. That's an easy answer to that. I tell you what, though, if you've got 15k, then potentially you've got the deposit for a property.
You've got the deposit for, yeah.
If you've got 15k, so you can leverage your position, use the bank's money.
Yeah, there's quite nice. There's a few nice flats at the moment. 50, 55.
Ryan says, Ryan, thanks for that, pal. Sounds like you're waffling a load of nonsense there, pal. Hey,
okay.
As Keith Cunningham said to me, now Keith Cunningham, if you don't know who he is Rich Dad. It's not Kiyosaki. Kiyosaki wrote the book about Keith Cunningham as Rich Dad. Keith Cunningham is Rich Dad. And Keith Cunningham said to me when I was talking to him, he says, Jim, you don't need to listen to me. This is only my opinion. But if you want to stay where you are right now, fair enough. And if you love where you are right now, then don't listen to me. Don't listen to a word I've got to say, because the reality is you're happy. Stay there. You don't need to earn any more money if you're happy where you are. Just don't listen. Jog on, as I say usually. Eric says, any property on the market? Yeah, there's obviously property on the market. I mean, in Fife itself, there's about 871 properties available on the market, and there is opportunities out there. You just have to realise where they're going. Ryan says again, this is the same Ryan. I have a steady job looking for a house. Well done, Ryan. Where'd you get the shirt from, Eric? What he's talking about. My friend has still not declared property income. This is Barry. This is Barry trying to wind us up now. Barry, my friend has still not declared property income. What should I tell him to do? Hand himself into the nearest police station, Barry. I know your friend isn't a friend at all. It's fictitious. Hola, inspired for success. Yep, Hola. He's in Benidorm, he's in Benidorm, inspired for success. Congratulations. A lot warmer out there. Oh, here we go. So we've got Mike, whatever their name is, probably Mink after their comment. Shelter should not be for profit. The fact there is time, this is for, it should not be for profit. There is time for this live shows. Landlord is leech.
We spoke before about obviously.
You're going to get the standard answer, okay? Yeah. So over the years, I have contributed hundreds of thousands of pounds towards my communities, towards my tenants, towards their welfare. I've managed to get them jobs, and we've housed a lot of people over the years who could not be housed by the local authority because they didn't have any housing for them. We've taken them, we've walked with them, we've held their hands throughout their process through all these years. That's all I can say to my track record. Let's go your track record. My property was never really for profit. I had never intended on doing that. It's a byproduct of what I do on a social landlord status. And yes, I am more social than the social and the council landlords, the social housing landlords, because I'm prepared to give up what I have in order to benefit my tenant. I think that's the most important thing. If you, in order to be successful in this, you have to make sacrifices for the people that you're looking after, which is your tenants. Things like if you have to get a new kitchen or you have to get a new heating system, it was unplanned or anything like that, and it's like you've not got the money for it, but you're going to go on a wonderful holiday, cancel your holiday, get the money back, and go and spend it on your tenant. That's what it is to be a social landlord, where you're prepared to make these sacrifices for your tenants. I've done it for the last 30 years.
It's important to appreciate that
Yeah.
profit needs to be made to maintain a property as well.
Yeah, profit. And this is profit is nasty. Profit is unacceptable. Well, profit is required in order to reinvest back in the business. Look it up. It is an accountancy standard. You have to generate a profit. If you did not have a profit, therefore you wouldn't be able to do repairs or improvements, pay people what they should be paid, and you wouldn't be able to give people concessions in the rent when they need it, because you're not making money. You're literally doing this for nothing and just working in a full-time job in order to look after a property to give someone for nothing. So with that said, let's hear what you've done for the people around in your community and what you've done for the hundreds of people that we've done for over the years, probably thousands, to be honest. Ross says, thanks for the... And Sean says, I have a property renting with no mortgage, bad time to refinance release equity with current rates. He's got a question mark. Well, actually, if the numbers work, Ross, no. But also, this comes back to proper planning again. This comes back to the planning about knowing if you're able to release equity. So when the opportunity does appear and you see a property that you could actually buy, you have the money out of this property that you've got in order to reinvest in the next property. Because remember, if you've got one property and you're earning, for example, you've not got a mortgage, but you're earning £350. In my opinion, and that property could be worth 100,000, for example, and you're earning £350 every month at the bottom, okay, or maybe £200 to take, for example. So no, it'd be 350 because you've not got a mortgage, because the 150 is the mortgage, isn't it? So £350 at that one property at £100,000. So you've got one property that you've got at £100,000. You then get a mortgage, and that reduces your profit because the mortgage is there. Maybe it reduces it to 150 to £200 a month. But you've now bought another property at £100,000. Now, you've got two properties now at £100,000. In the next 20 years, I always use 15 to 20 years for going up in value. In the next 20 years will double in value. So you're no longer just doubling 100,000, you're doubling 200,000. See how that compounding wealth happens? That's how you compound your wealth. Mm-hmm. It's about having the cash flow every single month, but having the properties and the wealth in the property in order to accumulate in value and double in value over the next 15 to 20 years. Hopefully that's given you the answer to your thing. Plus the fact you've actually spread your risk. You've split over two properties now. You've spread your risk deliberately. So if one goes down, the other one's still earning, and therefore that one pays the mortgage for the other one. But you're still earning, and you're still looking after it, and you're still able to reinvest as well. And you've got two rents coming in now for there. So when the value goes up again and you have more in there, then you have to think to yourself, okay, can I do this model again? And that's literally how I did it in the very beginning. Now, this can create a lot of implications, especially if you want to exit later on because of deferred capital gains. In other words, if you leverage yourself, if you buy a property for £100,000 and it doubles in value to £200,000, but you've mortgaged yourself up over the years and your mortgage is now £120,000, you've got to pay back £120,000 worth of mortgage, a £200,000 property, but your capital gain is £100,000. So you've got to pay tax on that. And if you're at a higher rate, it's 28%, so it's £28,000. So see how it eats into that, and you possibly didn't realise you had deferred capital gain, but your mortgage is now bigger than your original purchase price, and that could cause a problem. In the smaller picture, on the smaller properties, that could cause a real problem.
Yeah,
I've
seen that happen.
I know that because I was in that position where I had to carry properties with me, which the mortgage was more from the credit crunch. I had remortgaged because they were at a higher value, which now recovered in value and price. But I had to carry it over the last 13, 15 years at that price point with a negative equity on it. But I wasn't bothered because I was still earning money every single time. It made no difference because it's long term for me. There is a way around that though, and it's about transferring to an LLP and then transferring to a limited company and rebasing the capital gains to what it is today. Therefore, no tax, no capital gain at all. Wiped out. But that's another story.
I was just going to say.
That's another story, I'll tell you. Wow. That'll blow your mind. Sean says, it's 180,000 studio flat in Bristol, renting it £1,200 a month. Listen, Sean, if it makes sense, the numbers, now look back the Wealth Creation Show. I know you're on TikTok, so go to 5 Properties TV on YouTube. Look for our playlist on the Wealth Creation Show. Wealth Creation Show has got 64 episodes so far. Round about maybe middle of that or thereabouts, you'll see where we've worked it all out based on numbers. And contact Richard, because you'll have on that post as well on the Wealth Creation Show, you've got Richard's email address, Richard Cook. It's richard.cook@5properties.co.uk. He will be able to walk you through that scenario, possibly, but you'll more or less see it all advertised and all shown in clear as day information about how you should approach this based on occupancy rate, based on interest rate, based on arrangement fees, based on change in your rental value, if that ever changes, especially in England, because they're talking about taking away no fault eviction, section 21. They're talking about doing the same thing as they're doing in Scotland. You know, the Mayor of London's actually want to put rent freezes and rent caps in as well. So you need to hedge yourself against any possibility of that. And that playlist and these shows, all these shows will show you through there and basically in black and white exactly how you should be doing it. Okay, let's go to on here. So Stephen Perry says, I'm watching. Yep, hopefully you've taken that on board. That was actually, Stephen actually said, afternoon guys, first business at 23, 27 years later, many ups and downs, got me into property investing. Perfect.
I think Stephen's joining us on Thursday. We're doing a private Zoom on Thursday. I think Stephen's joining that.
Private Zoom sessions. We do private Zoom sessions as well, by the way. There's no cost to them. You just get in touch with Richard and you could join the club. And he says there, do you have any advice on how to minimise additional dwelling supplement when purchasing a single buy-to-let? This is the EDS, additional dwelling supplement. It's 3% in England. It's 6% in Scotland.
Buy 6.
Well, you could get it so you could buy 6 or more at one time, because then it doesn't apply. You could possibly go into a group. You could actually maybe all buy a property each.
Together,
You know, 6 people buy a property each and have a limited company and actually buy it in a limited company, and you all buy it at the same time at the same point. Put all the money in yourselves, and then you joint venture and you have a 6th ownership of the company. That's another way to get rid of it. The other one is as well, you can slightly reduce it by saying, I tell you what, it's maybe £100,000 to buy it, so that's £6,000 in EDS. I'm going to pay you 10 grand for the fixtures and fittings. But there's only a table and chairs. Well, nobody asked the question about what the fixtures and fittings really is, but there's a tolerance that the land registry accepts or the taxation accepts, and you could probably save yourself £600 doing that. By doing that, because that's 6% of £10,000. So that's another way. Or you can come to an agreement if it's nearer the 40,000 mark. You come to an agreement where possibly you might put a bit of cash the way of the person actually selling you the property at 40, just below £40,000, and again doing fixtures and fittings. You know, so if it's 42, you're having to pay for it. 3 grand for fixtures and fittings. You're only paying 39. No ADS.
No ADS, yeah.
Because it doesn't apply to fixtures and fittings. Okay. Next one, Susan asked the perfect question. Here we go. Don't understand exactly. I didn't understand either. if you're always interest only, how does that become wealth? It's never paid off.
This is in reference to your mortgage.
I touched on that subject. Interest only gives you a great amount of cash flow every single month. You can build that cash flow up if you want, and then you can pay down that mortgage. But what you don't realize is inflation's going up and property prices are going up. That mortgage stays exactly the same as it is. So basically the mortgage is getting eroded by inflation.
Yeah.
So technically the higher, and I'm not saying run out and get the biggest mortgage ever. Technically, the higher the mortgage, the more it's getting eroded with inflation, because that value you've got in that mortgage can't buy that property later on because the prices of property have gone up, but the mortgage has stayed the same. Plus your rent will be going up as well over the years. So there's a bigger margin between the interest that you're paying and the rent you're getting after the years, but there's also a bigger margin between the property price originally and what that could buy with that mortgage and what it could buy in the future. But you're leveraging your position as well with the cash flow and also the fact that you've got that value in that overall property. Because remember, you've got as much money from the bank. You're actually making money on the bank's money in capital appreciation. So if you've got a mortgage of 50 grand and the price of the property doubles in 10 years, 15, 20 years time, you're making 50 grand on that 50 grand mortgage because the property is doubled with the 50 grand that you paid to buy that property with. That's why interest only is a great idea.
Yeah.
And the thing is, with interest only, it allows you to put the money aside to do repairs and improvements if you want. But if you've got a huge stash of cash, pay the mortgage down. But at least it's in your hands. At least the money's in your hands. Whereas if you don't do that, then what's going to happen is if it gets to a turbulent time where the property market drops, the bank's going to go, we're not going to let you lend and borrow any more money back. You've got no chance. That's what happened in the credit crunch.
Yeah.
Where all these people that did capital repayment didn't do that. Plus the fact, if you do capital repayment as well, you might be borderline to the point where you might actually have to pay tax, but have no cash to pay it. That's a really important one. That's on the Wealth Creation Shows in the playlist there somewhere, on our playlist on the YouTube channel. And you might be able, so I'll give you an example of that before we just finish off, because we need to finish off there. We're getting to 1 hour, 30 minutes now.
Yeah.
An example of that, an easy example, is you've got £1,000 in rent. So you've got £1,000 in rent and you've got £500 in your mortgage, and it's a capital repayment mortgage. Now, for easy purposes, just to show you what's happening here, your £500 in your mortgage, £250 interest only, £250 capital repayment. Hopefully I understand that. You've got £1,000 rent. Make it really easy. Overheads are going to be there anyway, regardless. So you've got £1,000 rent coming in. You've got a £500 mortgage. We can all be agreed at the end of that, you'd have £500 to cover overheads once the mortgage is paid. But the tax man doesn't work like that. The tax man says, you've got £1,000 coming in, you've only got a £250 in interest. So therefore, as far as I'm concerned, you've got £750 profit to cover overheads. So I'm going to tax you on the 750 minus the overheads, not the £500 minus the overheads. So you could easily, this is the classic example where I got a lot of people out there to say, if only I can cover my mortgage. And I'm like, oh my God, you're in the wrong business. If you've got £1,000, you've got £1,000 mortgage and it's capital repayment, then you're going to run out of cash. Because that's the other example. You've got £1,000 coming in, you've got £1,000 coming off, you've got no cash, but say that £1,000 mortgage is 500 and 500. Therefore, the inland revenue is going to give you the interest deduction, which is 1,000 minus 500. They're going to tax you on £500 a month. You've got no cash, by the way, because you paid money down on your mortgage, on your capital repayment mortgage. Therefore, you've got no money to pay your tax bill. That's how you can run out of money. There can be businesses out there. I know loads of businesses, and you'll only because I'm in accountancy and I've been in accounting for a lot of years. You've got businesses out there who have made loads of profit, but have actually gone into administration because they've got no cash to service their debt. Because they've run out of debt, they've run out of cash to do it.
Cash for the debt, yeah.
Yeah, because you can make loads of profit, but you could have all your money laid out in stock. You could have all your money laid out with debtors, with customers you've given extended credit to. So you can easily run out of cash, but have no money to pay the bills. And it's the same for buy to let. You can leave yourself in that position as well. So that's the difficulty that you've got to understand. That's why I love the fact that interest only is rent coming in, interest coming off. It's more or less replicates the tax bill more or less replicates exactly what your cash flow bill is. So your cash and your tax, your profit is exactly the same when it comes to an interest only, more than likely, unless it's in your name personally. Then it comes to section 24, which is deduction at lower rate tax band only. If you're a high rate taxpayer, you're more or less screwed. But that's another story. Finally, Empire's property sourcing
Just going to say
says
we've got one more, and then that's what we could finish up with.
ADS on fixture and fittings as opposed to the property. Well, fixture and fittings is not part of the property, therefore it can actually, you can pay for fixture and fittings in a property, but it's not part of the ADS calculation. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, Susan said thank you for that, Jim. I think that's made that clear to her.
And that's us. Very helpful. Thanks, John. Thank you very much for that. And that's us. Okay, we're finished.
Yeah.
Done.
Thanks, guys. It's good to keep it interactive and have everybody joining in. We will, of course, be back next Monday, 12:30 as usual. Jim and I are doing a private session, which I think a few of you are joining in on Thursday.
Thursday night.
And until then, I'll see you all next week.